And this would serve as a repeater for the other weather stations. It was pretty slick back when it was working. It comes up with a 4-volt battery.
We've lost a lot of ice in this reed sprint here.
Now what they sell is this plastic piece of junk. So I'll be surprised if this makes it through the winter. Oh boy, I wonder if I forgot something I was supposed to bring. These little songbirds. It's happening while we're watching it, right here, like right there. This is a unique opportunity. 5 years from now, it may be too late to capture that opportunity. Well, minor panic. I went to turn the GPS on. The GPS that should be here. That wasn't there, that I didn't take off. That pole is, this region of the glacier is slowing down considerably faster than every other part of the glacier. It's got a pressure sensor, so it tells us if it's about to explode or not. So we can get some really strong winds here. I hope they're not going to get that strong tonight, but.
Well, it's morning. It was a rough night's sleep. Super windy. The tent was just shaking its heart out all night long. It only calmed down maybe half an hour ago. It's about almost 6:30 now. I think the sun is about to come up. So, time to get to work. Get a little breakfast, dressed, get a little organization. Today's goals are, there's 2 more poles to survey. One of them is pretty far down glacier. There's a weather station down there too to download and fix up if needed. And go up to camp, get a weather station there sorted, and I'm gonna take a photo. I take a gigapixel photo every time I'm up there, as often as I can anyway. This year, I'm up there looking at that big face that's snow dome that's melting away, and the glacier too. And then get the steam drill fired up and install a thermistor string or 2, depending how things go. Measuring temperature, ice temperature at 14 meters, which is kind of just about where the seasonal limit is. I guess it's kind of a mean annual air temperature. Those measurements have been happening since the 70s. And then we'll see. I'm gonna see if I get my internet working again. I got it working last night for a bit, and I wasn't paying attention. I didn't realize my testing at home, I guess when you're using it, it draws a lot more than just sort of turning it on and see what it does. So sucked my battery down almost dry. So it looks like it's gonna be super windy the next few days. So I'm not sure. I can't take off with a big tailwind like last night. It was impossible. We'll just have to see. So I'm going to try and get some more charge on that battery today, too. And first step, though, is to see if I can get my body to uncurl itself from the sleeping position and be functional again. Okay. We'll see how it goes.
Well, there it is, sunrise on McCall Glacier, August 6th, 2024. Such a special place, huh? Just for my morning stroll. I try and get up before the sun every time I'm here and get all my joints and creaky bones whipped into shape, or at least as in shape as they can be for an old man like me. Check out the plane. Seems to be still there and anchored down. Not the day's work. I think overnight, you know, the ice gets all that liquid water that's been here, not all of it, but a lot of it, without the sunshine beating down on it, that shortwave solar, the energy balance changes so that it's got constant loss, right, of energy. Everything that's above absolute zero is giving off radiating energy and losing energy all the time. So without that balance of the sunshine beating down on it to melt it, it starts to cool off and refreeze. It's losing energy. It's clear sky. So the practical effect is that the ice gets super slick. It's a skim of newly frozen water and ice on it. So I wear my little creepers here. Otherwise I'd be slipping and sliding and breaking bones. I'm just gonna walk down. I haven't walked my skiway yet, but I do that first thing, get a little exercise in. It's windy. It was windy last night. I think it's going to continue to be, but it's a warm wind anyway. I'm just wearing a sweater. I don't even have gloves on. But the wind's coming from the south. It's that way, which is, I got to take off downhill, which is that way. And when I take off, I don't want the wind coming from behind me, which it looks like it's going to stay that way for quite a while. So I'm not sure how that's going to work out. Normally there's a katabatic breeze. So up there where the coldest air is, colder air is denser than warmer air, so it sinks and creates a little flow across the surface downhill. We call those katabatic winds. They can be quite ferocious in places like Antarctica and Greenland. Here it's just a gentle 5-10 mile an hour breeze, but it's enough. I still don't want to take off with that at my back. But then, as you see, the sun starts beating on these walls, these rock walls, and heating up the rock. And as the rock heats up, it heats the air right next to the rock. And that air, because it's now less dense, being warm air, starts to rise. And in a valley like this, with so much rock, that heating effect of the rock wall creates an effect in the entire valley. That is, it creates basically a vacuum. It's lifting air up, which means that air's got to be replaced from somewhere, right? So it gets replaced by down glacier air, maybe even down by the tundra if the whole valley is heating up like that. So now you get air being sucked up the valley that's counteracting that katabatic flow. So sometime about 11 noon is usually when I shoot to take off, because the air gets slack with those two effects competing against each other. And then by 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon, that valley wind is so strong, that lifting effect, that it's sucking warm, moist air from the tundra down there. You can kind of see it. It's clouded over already down there. It sucks that warm, moist air, or cold, moist air from the tundra, which then comes over this cold glacier and condenses, creating fog. So usually, most late afternoons, the air is really dry right now because it's coming from the south. But if there's any kind of humidity, and that valley, now we're getting, the air we're getting here is coming from the south somewhere. It's not a local effect. But we get this fog happening 3 in the afternoon. It creeps up usually to about right here, and then it kind of slides back downhill. Sometimes it'll go up further. Sometimes it'll just kind of hang out right where we see the valley there. So anyway, I don't want to take off while that's happening either, because I like to see what I'm flying over, just in case. Glacier surface is pretty lumpy here. I think it'd be fine for taking off, but it's lumpier than normal. I should have brought my walking stick. I think I'm going to find a different place to take off. Excuse me. You can see how shiny the surface is. It's super slick. I was looking up at the head of the lower cirque last night. That was all ice cover too. I have to look at my photos, but I think when I first got here 20 years ago, that was mostly ice covered. Now you can see it's all that ice is disappearing. It won't be long. That ice is so thin now, it won't be long. A couple hot summers, I think, is all it's going to take. All right. We'll make a little breakfast. And then download the weather stations here and make sure all that stuff's working before I take it somewhere else and find out it's not working or missing a cable or something. And then maybe fire up the steam drill, make sure it works. I want to give the ice a chance to warm up and get brittle. I don't want to go down glacier when it's so slick like this, because it's challenging enough to drive a snow machine over ice, but ice that has sort of zero friction can get exciting at times. I know from experience. Yeah, look at that. Spectacular. Yeah, a lot of ice missing there too. All those north facing, which is that way, walls, like right there. That was all ice covered when I got here. You could ski that. All right, it's daylight. Let's get to work. Okay, starting day 2 of my 58th year and my 22nd year at finishing my 22nd year here. So right now I'm gonna download the weather station here at camp. It's behind me. This weather station's gone through some iterations. I put it here because you can see right through that notch is Kaktovik. Back in the day when the dew line antennas were up, you could actually see them from here. So I put this up about 15 years ago, back when we were using radios, freewave radios, for telemetry. So I had a base station on the school, Kaktovik, that could receive a straight shot with this antenna here to telemeter weather station data, and this would serve as a repeater for the other weather stations. It was pretty slick back when it was working. Then the school burned down and we lost that. I never replaced it, and so the weather station stayed here because it was here. I gradually added more and more things to it. It's kind of outlived it needs a redesign. I'm going to build a new weather station kind of up there, just a little bit of ways, and make that the main glacier weather station that sort of incorporates what happens down glacier, which you'll see in a minute, which is mostly defunct now. Easy to maintain because I can land right next to it and set up with modern stuff. Right now, this is purely in maintenance mode, or triage mode, really, just trying to keep the basic things being measured, the air temperature being the most basic, but incoming solar and wind. So let's see if you can see here. So those things are measuring how much sunshine's coming in, and obviously the wind speed. Station's all tilted, so the wind direction, it's not the greatest. This design, it's built out of old survey poles. We don't like to throw, we can't, where do you throw things away here? You don't. So things I collect from around the glacier, either stuff I brought in that is no longer good, or stuff that I find, like these barrels. Like, just decided to use one of these barrels as a table. So these barrels were flown in, airdropped in, I'm guessing late 60s. You can still see the ropes tied to it. I think that one burst on impact. But there's parachutes all around here. I've got photos of the parachutes coming down. And that was just a different time. They just left everything here. I've taken out, I don't know what the exact weight is, but several tons, literally tons of old scientific debris from the 50s and 70s, mostly from the 70s. I'm not sure, very little from the 50s, actually. But yeah, we had a couple big cleanup projects, multiple sling loads, many sling loads with a helicopter. And every time, when I'm out here in summer, I try and just kind of consolidate stuff I find that's melting out or wherever into piles. And then at some point we'll have another cleanup effort, but that point is not imminent anyway. Okay, so this is one of the simpler loggers. Very little programming. It just got these plug-and-play sensors. You just pop them in, away they go. I had to hot wire this a little bit. These aren't designed for the Arctic, so I added some extra batteries, and they used to be a great company, and they still are, but they've just gone to the mass market and done, in my opinion, stupid things. Like their batteries are 4 volts. It comes up with a 4-volt battery. So you can't use regular solar. You can convert, but it's all a pain. Everything has to be homegrown. So the 2 big challenges, let's set this down here. The 2 big challenges with downloading weather stations are keeping your computer dry in the rain and snow. So carry with me a plastic bag, a trash bag. Basically, I just crawl inside that with the computer, try and get as much as I can, and seeing the screen because it's super bright out here. So I'm going to plug in this download cable. And see what we get. So I've got this Sun Shield visor. I can kind of see the screen. All right. Let's see. Don't stop. So it's connected. That's a good sign. Downloading. What do we got? Let's see. Save the file now. And hey, looks like everything is working since May. I see air temperature, relative humidity, and solar radiation. Check the dates, May 16th through August 6th. Looks like it's like 10 degrees according to this thing. So, let's see, 7:48. 1 second. Yeah, so the time seems to be right. So logs every hour. The last log was 7. It's quarter to 8 now. All right, so I'm gonna unplug this before I hit the wrong button. Close this up so it doesn't get rained on. Okay, there we go. Oops. Yeah. Yeah, good. All right, so we got one more weather station. That's this one. This is the original. All right, just one more data logger. Kind of all the same weather station. So this is a more sophisticated data logger. It takes a lot more programming, and for whatever reason they put it in this cryptic language. I use a very big battery here. This was the old radio. That's when the battery was needed. This was a camera that we used to study sky conditions, because cloudiness and fog are big influences on the glacier here. So we want to understand, what is the cloudiness like? I mean, the solar radiation gives us, sensor gives us some sense of that, but doesn't really tell you about clouds. Just tells you something's happening for the sunshine. What that is, it's probably clouds, but is it overcast? Is it partly cloudy? Is it foggy? So only really photos can tell you that, or just being here. But obviously none of that's working anymore. So now, put you back up here again. So it's a different cable. Downloading these is also a much bigger pain in the ass. This whole system's a pain. I dropped the camera, or it fell over like that yesterday into the snow, and I went to try and charge it up. I guess it's a good thing, but it told me, we're detecting water in your charging port, so we're not going to allow you to charge because you'll fry your camera, or fry your phone. So I almost ran out of battery power. I had to switch to a different phone yesterday because I had to use this phone for the survey. All right. Let's see here. RST32 or CS. I don't know how they sit around and ask themselves, how can we make this more complicated and difficult? Yeah. Well, I should plan ahead here. This cable's a little shorter. Alright, let's see what we get here. Let's see. This may take a little bit more bigger. I might just, shut this off for a minute, figure a few things out. Okay, got the second data logger downloading. It's always a pain in the ass. Actually, it happened recently, quickly this time, miraculously. Yeah, I don't know who designs these things. It's still happening, it's much slower download. But I'd say, you see the anemometer spinning up there, and next to it are these two like white things with fins. So what's happening there is these are air temperature sensors snaked inside those fins. The reason you want that is if you just leave your thermometer out in the sun, it'll start heating up on its own, and it'll read 100 degrees when it's freezing outside. So you got to keep the thermometer, the sensor itself, in the shade. But so how do you shade it? The sun's moving all around. You got to figure that out. And then you don't want the thing that's shading it to radiate heat onto it either. So they have these fin designs. Where are we here? Yeah, these fins that let the air flow through them and cool them off. So they're supposed to be reflecting the sunshine off the sensor and then not getting heated themselves, which happens pretty well on a windy day because the wind flows through it. On a calm day, they heat up anyway. I don't have it on this one, but I'll show you later on. Go down to the next station. I fooled around with fin design quite a bit and found a design. I didn't install it here, unfortunately, but found a fin design that works substantially better than the standard ones. The problem is, I'll show you when we get there too, but you see they're curved like this. They're meant for like a cornfield in Kansas or something, right? Here we're on a really super reflective surface, so the sunshine's not just coming from the top, it's coming from the bottom. So those things are angled such that they're reflecting the sunshine back into the sensor. They still do pretty well. I mean, we're talking nitpicking here for the most part, but yeah, there's a lot of improvement that can happen for glaciological fin design for these solar radiation shields. The state of the art, or at least the most expensive ones, they come with a fan. They're aspirated. They blow air over the sensor all the time and over the shield so that it doesn't heat up like that. So if the wind stops like it did just kind of right now for the first time since I've been here, they keep the sensor cool, but that takes a lot of power, and we don't have a lot of power here. So we do what we can. Let's see how we're doing with downloading. Yeah, it looks like we got something there. Let's see what it says. Okay. Oh man, it's hard to see. Let's see. So I'm just trying to navigate to those files now. It doesn't conveniently plot them for me. Why would I want that? All right. So metadata. So I've got data back to 2023, which is good. And okay, 8.6, 13.8 degrees inside there, 11.8 degrees outside. Yeah, it's data. Okay. So I like having all my future weather stations are going to have independent data loggers, 2 or 3 of them, at least 2, hopefully more like 3 or 4, because you just can't predict when these things are going to break. Windstorm happens, static fries it, who knows what. Battery dies, get a short, human error. So multiple redundancy is the way to go. That's what we have here. So both of them work this time, which is good. There's a couple cameras looking at this pole. I'm gonna deal with that tonight. Now I think I'm just gonna get moving to now that I have got all the cables, the computer's working. We'll go down Glacier, do the last of the GPS, and download those weather stations, and then head up to camp. Okay, sightseeing Japan's fired around way too long trying to get the Starlink thing to work. It works pretty well with the panels plugged in. Panels keep up with it, but I just don't have the time to sit around and try and upload stuff. But I did check the weather. Ready to go. I'm gonna head up to camp first, take my photo of snow dome there, download the dead loggers, then we'll zip down. The ice will be a little better by then. Do the last pole, come back up, a little lunch, do some steam drilling, and yeah, start thinking about packing up. So at the bottom of the hill to our historic camp, every year this gets a little bit more treacherous. One of the biggest changes happening on the glacier is right in this area. All this rock that you see right here was not here. It was buried in the glacier when we first got here. It emerged 2004 or 5, something like that. Just bits and pieces, and got bigger and bigger. And at that time, the glacier, the ice, there was a whole bunch of ice between these rocks and the edge. So the ice was kind of, yeah, it's hard to say exactly, but quite a bit higher. So we've lost a lot of ice in this region right here. So camp is up there, and we used to access it kind of where that big rock, we'd get off the ice and go straight up where that big rock is. I guess you can't see that big rock, and then hike around. Now you're gonna have to start up here because there's also a big stream there. So start here and sort of hike that way without losing much elevation. So starting high, heading that way. So suit up, backpack, get the tripod and stuff for the photos, and next stop is camp. Right there. Okay, hiked up to camp now. Oh, I just saw another rock slide that must have happened last night. Can you see out there that debris on the glacier that wasn't there yesterday? Nice view from up here. It's a beautiful spot. I would much prefer to camp up here if given the chance and opportunity. But on a short trip, it's just it's a bit too much, and it's getting more and more treacherous getting up here. The glacier retreating. So upper circ, middle circ, lower circ, airplane is down there. I'm sure you can see it. And weather station. So download this weather station. It's got air temperature. Can I do that? I reach solar radiation, wind, and a tipping bucket for rain. Oh, darn it! I was going to put a camera up here too. I forgot. Oh well. The wind sensor is functional, but the device that converts its signals into something that this weather station can read is broken, and this company in their wisdom no longer supports making those devices. This is an awesome anemometer, indestructible, perfect for up here. I think I was the one that convinced them to make that piece originally, like 15 years ago, the analog digital converter. Now what they sell is this plastic piece of junk. So I'll be surprised if this makes it through the winter, but what can you do? That's progress. All right, so time to open up the data logger box. Oh, there's the data logger, super simple. Let's see if I can set this here somehow. Maybe. Okay, then we get out our computer. Same drill. I'll download it first, and then I'll have to stop it to get the to put the new wind sensor on. I gotta take that off, track down its cable, and then work my way into here to run the cable in. Oh, fuck. Oh boy, I wonder if I forgot something I was supposed to bring. I tried to lighten my load. Yeah, talking about lighten my load. I got frustrated at that Starlink taking so long. I was like, okay, I gotta get moving. I left my water bottle and my snacks in the tent with the tent door open, thinking, okay, I'm gonna go in the tent before I leave. Just took off, so I don't have a water bottle or snacks. Got all my survival gear, got all my science gear. I tried to lighten the science gear load. We'll find out here in a minute if I screwed that up and left something behind that I shouldn't have. But I think I might sign off now and do some surgery and log back in here in a minute. These little songbirds, they'll show up any time of year, usually in the fog and clear. I think they just get lost. There's really nothing much for them to eat up here, I imagine. Yeah, flocks will come by. You'll hear this tweet, tweet, tweet. I just saw that one. But yeah, lots of dead birds flying around here too. So I think they get lost. They don't eat enough, and then they just keel over. But anyway, I don't know where that guy went. All right, back to work. Almost done. Just launching the logger now. New weather station, new anemometer. Ooh, that thing there. We'll see how it survives. All buttoned up, tested, working. Great view. If you like that kind of thing, I guess. Now it's up to our photo spot to take a photo of a panorama, gigapixel panorama of everything you see here. I try and do it every time I'm here in summer. A little bit of a hike, but not too bad. Wish I'd have brought my water bottle and snacks, but them's the breaks. I'm up at the photo spot now. You can see the camera behind me here doing its own thing. I got into gigapixel photography 2007. So this is ancient gear compared to what people use now, but it's what I have, it's what I know how to use. Now you just press a button and everything happens. You don't even need a separate camera. Anyway, this spot that we're standing at has a great view. Let's do this without tripping over. Has a great view of the rest of the glacier, right? The reason I chose this spot is because 65 years ago or so, the IGY crowd in 1957 chose this spot as a survey spot. So they were surveying glacier motion. They had to use theodolites, optical surveying, hit targets, triangulate, the whole works. A lot more work than what, a lot more work than I'm doing now. A lot less accuracy in some sense. So when I first got out here, right before my second trip in August 2003, Austin Post sent me a shoebox full of photos and negatives that he had taken in 1958 when he was out here. And one of them was a photo of a surveyor surveying at this location. That cairn right there was in the photo, and it had this panorama as part of the photo, or he took a panorama here too. So I've been taking this panorama. So yeah, so it's probably a year later, after dinner one night. It was a nice night. We're not going out on the glacier anymore. I took that photo and I hunted for the spot, and I found the cairn. I found there's some aluminum foil. I think the aluminum foil that's still leftovers from the 70s when they were 60s and 70s when they were surveying here. But so every time I'm out here in August, I try and get here on a clear day up to the spot about noon, and yeah, mostly watch this phase here just disappear. Like these noon attacks, all this was all ice coverage. In 1957, even that whole ridge was also ice covered. Oh, the camera is finished this room. So I have a motor that spins me around, but I have to manually change the declination like so. And then get out of the way, try not to trip over anything, and hit go, and it starts. So now it's shooting. So I'm shooting in rows here. All right, so 4 rows, sort of the skyline and the glaciers now, or the peaks of the glaciers. Now the main part of the glacier, then one down from this after this one's done, if I can remember. Had a little trouble remembering where the photo spot was. It's been a few years since I've done this, and I didn't put a cairn up. I'm so used to knowing where it is. After a few years, my memory is not as good as it used to be, but I'm 80 to 90% sure I've got the right spot. I mean, it's in the right location. Whether it's like the right spot, I don't know, but we get the general idea anyway. Boy, I hope those I hope I wasn't in the shot just now with the camera. I'm gonna stand back here. Yeah, this behind me here, or actually, right here, the north-facing part. So north is that way, so it's get a bit more shade. That was all ice. You can see the lighter colored rock, kind of in here, all recently deglaciated. See the plain, kind of right down there somewhere. So that snow, like I said, we had a recent snow yesterday. By yesterday, that was all gone. Or today, anyway, that's all gone. So now we're just down to bare ice again. So it's better. Today's a better day for this photo than yesterday would have been, because we get to see more of the ice features. And the snow machine is kind of right about there. These are those moraines I was talking about on the ice. It's hard to get my fingers going in the right direction here. So I got to go this way. Yeah, there we go. That stuff. That was in sort of more towards the middle of the glacier. That was a medial moraine. Now it's becoming a lateral moraine because the ice alongside it, between there and the rock wall that I'm standing on, has disappeared, or disappearing. So yeah, lots of changes. But they're small changes, you know. I mean, you'd only notice it if you were out here doing this or saw photos from 20 or 50 years apart. These glaciers, this is one of the bigger ones, and it's small compared to glaciers in Southeast Alaska. I mean, a lot of those glaciers are wider than this glacier is long. So these Arctic glaciers don't have much to say. They don't have much contribution, any contribution that you could actually measure on sea level rise, like talking about microns. But they are important in their own right as being, I gotta change the, just make sure that I didn't look at the old photos, make sure I wasn't in the photo there. So bright. That looks good. All right, so I gotta tilt this down another 10 degrees. So that was 170. This is 160 now. And for all this, I gotta set it all manual exposure so that, you know, manual focus, so nothing's changing between photos when you stitch it together. Yeah, so these glaciers, you know, they're important because they exist. They're important because they're part of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. But they play a huge role, not sea level rise, they play a huge role in the local ecology downstream of here. The meltwater from these glaciers is what keeps the rivers open downstream of here going to the Arctic Ocean. That water is what allows fish migrations to occur from the ocean, Dolly Varden migrations. Without this glacier meltwater, there wouldn't be enough, there's not enough rain out there to support that. So those fish are there because of the glaciers. That meltwater carries sediments with it that go out to the ocean. Doesn't make it all the way out to the ocean. As it hits the ocean, it kind of dumps those sediments. The water slows down, creates huge deltas. The biggest deltas in Arctic Alaska are on these rivers that these glaciers feed. These are the smallest rivers in Arctic Alaska, yet they have the biggest ocean deltas because of the glaciers and the sediments they pump out. Those deltas create habitat for tens of thousands of migratory birds. All the birds that come to, not all of them, but certainly a vast majority perhaps. I'm not a bird guy. I know a lot of them, from what I've been told. They go to those deltas because they're big, they're huge habitat. They're freshwater deltas. They have freshwater invertebrates. It's a multi-year life cycle. It's different than the smaller non-glacier marine deltas because you have marine invertebrates there. They don't last as long. They mostly wash up in storms. It's a different habitat. So when these glaciers disappear, which they are rapidly doing, those rivers are going to dry up. Those deltas are going to go away. What happens to the fish? What happens to the birds? When those rivers dry up, those rivers are what's keeping the brush from forming. They're so mobilizing. You're going to have a lot of willows and alders. That means moose, right? Rabbits, these kind of things. Things that like woody vegetation. What's that going to do to the other animals out here, the caribou? Who knows? I don't know. But this is something we need to study, right? This is one of the reasons we study these glaciers and where they're going, is because they are important locally. And glaciologically, they're hugely important. What we learn here on McCall Glacier tells us countless things about the Greenland ice sheet, which does matter globally, right? I said yesterday how the camera finished here. I think that's it. I mentioned yesterday about up in the upper cirque here that it's that snow melt refreezing into that big sponge we call firn that keeps this glacier warm up high, and that warm ice flows downhill and keeps the bed sliding, right? When the sponge disappears, the glacier gets cold, the sliding stops. Well, there's an enormous sponge like that in the Greenland ice sheet. Everywhere the surface of the ice melts, or the surface snow melts, that sponge exists where it doesn't melt all the way to ice. And that's an enormous region, right? So you have this warm ice generator happening on a massive global scale, right, on Greenland. Well, the same thing's happening there, right? Climate warming, difference in precipitation. That sponge is changing in size, getting smaller, it's moving up. What we don't have here that they have there, they have a dry snow zone. So that sponge is moving uphill, but it's also taking downhill with it, right? So Greenland's getting colder in places. It's also about to start getting warmer in places. It's a continuum, right? Because that sponge is moving uphill, but it's also losing downhill. Greenland's massive, right? We got all these satellites. We got, hundreds of people studying it. It wasn't until 10, 15 years ago we knew whether Greenland was gaining mass or losing mass, because it's different everywhere, right? You have to add up the whole thing. Like, all I need is 10 stakes. You need, 10 satellites to figure that out over there. So what happens here on McCall Glacier, what we can study here on McCall Glacier with this ice, is the same process that's going on in Greenland. right? Same dynamic, same glacier. Glaciers are more or less glaciers. The difference here is scale. I can wrap my arms around this entire problem, right? I can measure the local weather. I can measure the dynamics. I can measure the temperature. I can measure the volume change of the surface lowering. I can take photos of it for fun. I can do that. I got all the inputs and all the outputs and the transfer functions in between, the dynamics going on here. I can capture all that. Can't do that on Greenland. I mean, you can do it in pieces and parts, but not for the whole ice sheet. It's just intractable. It's too massive. So what we learn here, the models I develop here, the processes that we can elucidate here, all this knowledge can transfer straight to the Greenland ice sheet. And we're in a unique position in time right now because we're capturing that demise, the demise of those dynamics. The glacier is getting colder. The bottom basal ice is freezing to the bed, inhibiting sliding. It's happening while we're watching it right here, like right there. This is a unique opportunity. 5 years from now, it may be too late to capture that opportunity. And we can see what happens after, but to see it in process, who knows? I mean, I have a good idea what we'll learn, but who knows what we'll learn, right? That's why we're out here studying things, putting as many instruments on here as we can while it's still happening, before it's too late, because climate could not change a bit anymore, and this glacier is going to waste away. All these glaciers are going to waste away. And you can see behind me here the snow line, and that's recent snow. The snow line's way up there, right? Way up there. That means the glacier that will, if it stayed just like that, the glacier would end at that ridge. That's as much ice is being generated there. All this ice, these hundreds of meters of ice, it's gone. It's just a waiting game. How fast, we can predict with some accuracy. But if climate doesn't change at all, we've already passed a tipping point here. We need, you need, like what we saw 5 years ago, you need lowering a snow line, less melt in summer. That snow line needs to come all the way down here to where, just out of view. That's what it takes. That's where the snow line has to be to maintain the size of this glacier as it exists today. You need to be generating ice on this whole region. It has to be generating ice because it's going to melt. All glaciers, Greenland, everywhere, even the Antarctic to a certain degree, all glaciers are losing mass near their bottoms. The question is, are you generating more than you're losing? Right now, we're generating way less than we're losing. And it would take a major change in climate to keep that from happening. So that's what's driving all these dynamics, these changes in climate. And that's, that change in Greenland the climate change is different than here. But the directionality is the same, right? We're losing mass. We're not generating as much new ice as we're melting of old ice. And therefore the dynamic processes that I'm studying here are totally relevant there. So for all these reasons, that's why I'm out here, right? Why am I out here alone? That's a separate question. Maybe we'll save that one for a storm day, but that's why I'm out here. That's why we need to study this place, because it matters. And what we learn here matters and could help us. And it's really cool and interesting. And what a beautiful place, right? To be able to capture this in photography, airborne mapping, and on the ground. One of my first mentors in science, he had a phrase he liked to say is, always speak to the unknown friend. Who knows who's going to pick up this project, after I quit, and who knows what's going to be here 100 years from now, who's going to study it. But that's what we do now. All these data, we collect it, we analyze it, we give it our best guess, archive it, and let the unknown friend of the future, figure it out better than we did, or not. We just don't know. But it doesn't matter. The point is not to be right. The point is to get it done and to save it and to get it while it's happening. And that's what I'm trying to do. And that's why I got to stop talking, because I got to get more data. Okay. Next stop, I got to get my water bottle. And then next stop, last survey post. So, well, minor panic as I got back to camp, had some lunch, reconfiguring some gear. I went to turn the GPS on. The GPS that should be here, that wasn't there, that I didn't take off. So it apparently rattled off somewhere along the route. So I came back halfway up to camp again. Unfortunately, just came across this. Looks to be in one piece. Keep a closer eye on it in the future. Put some tape around this so it doesn't do this again. Super lucky it fell off right there, because if it fell off on that slope, this slope, it would have careened down to who knows where, into a river, probably never to be seen again, or at least not for years. But fortunately, we're back in business, so time to head down Glacier. This is one of my favorite locations on the glacier because there's such a cool little story right here. So what we're looking at is a moraine. Right, so I'm standing on the glacier. My plane is kind of there, camp is kind of up there. There's this outcrop, red rocks right here. Well, that's nice to find on the glacier. But an outcrop. Rocks. Rocks take that spot, but look, right here they stop. So what happened? 150 years ago or so, this glacier was at its peak size in recent history, 2,000 years. It got high enough, right? You can see the moraine. It got high enough to intersect that outcrop and drag some rocks along with it. But that was right at its peak, because that much distance later, right, it was no longer high enough to do that. So this tells us I haven't actually done it yet, but I always want to do the calculation. Maybe years, I don't know, how long does it take to go that distance? That's, glacier moves here 10 meters a year. So 100 meters, that's, yeah, it could be 100 years worth of motion. But then it started to retreat, or the glacier started to thin. As much ice, the ice factory was shut down, and that's the process that's continuing on until today. That we're standing on ice surface that today, or back then, was that high. I don't know what that is. That's probably 100 meters higher than we are. But a clue like this, right, that it stops right there, that's something we could use just as anecdotal, not anecdotal, but fountain in a sense, right? If we were asking glaciologists 200 years ago to do something, it might be something like that, put markers in. So now we have motion markers from 150 years ago. So with our glacier modeling, we can start to model that and figure out how fast the ice was moving when it was this thick and when it was sliding along the bottom because the bottom was warm. This was accumulation area about right here back then. This is probably about the limit of it, right where we're standing. So this was peak glaciology for peak glacier size for McCall Glacier way back when. I'm standing now next to what I think is probably the most interesting survey pole in the glacier, this one here. Where we are right now is a lot further down glacier than I've been before. There's the hanging glacier. I'll point that out when we get back up there, but that glacier used to come all the way down to the glacier surface. The glacier surface, you can see that this line here That's how high this glacier was 75 years ago. Less, really, in the 70s. Late 60s, early 70s. They were actually almost walking off the glacier onto the top of that. And that hanging glacier was almost coming down all the way. This area from here to about where that rises, by a variety of clues in modeling and things glaciologists kind of think about, we know that this area that I'm standing on right now, the bottom of the glacier here slides through winter. That some component, third or so of the glacier motion here that I measure on that pole, is due to the fact the glacier is sliding along its base. Just upstream of here, a lot of water hits the bed. Also just downstream, you can see a couple, in Europe anyway, a couple big rivers. That water gets under there, pressurizes things, makes things move a little faster, but it's predicated on the fact that the base of the glacier is warm. So a little bit downhill here, 1975, and then in 2008, we drilled all the way to the bottom to say, yeah, okay, we know the base of the glacier here is warm. These are the kind of things that help us understand that, this region of the glacier is sliding, unlike in winter, unlike the rest of the glacier, which is not. All of it may slide a bit in summer. We have summer speed ups here. All the poles show an increase in speed in summer. A bit of that, if not the bulk of it, may be that this part goes faster and just kind of drags the rest of it with it. Be that as it may, what's happening now, according to that pole, the motion of that pole, is this region of the glacier is slowing down considerably faster than every other part of the glacier. And that's due to this part of the glacier getting cold at the bottom, not sliding as much. And that component of motion, that the non-deformational part, the part, glaciers slide and they deform under their own weight. The deformation's still happening, but the sliding's not. So I wasn't able to measure that pole in May, rather. That field trip had a number of different issues associated with it. I just wasn't able to make it this far down in the time that I had. I only had one day to do anything for a variety of reasons. So it's just a quick in and out trip. But I'm really glad to have made that measurement now, and I'm really looking forward to seeing whether that trend is continuing or at some point it's going to bottom out and it's just going to be deformational motion. So I haven't done the calculation yet to figure out when that'll be, but presumably shortly. So now on to some weather stations and back up to camp. Well, I'm standing at what was our main weather station for the glacier. Survived more than 20 years. Awesome data. A lot of the awesome part of the instruments had crapped out over the years, past 10 years, and I just don't have the funds or the time to kind of keep them up. But great air temperature record here. Totally consistent. Had 4 different sensors going, different shields. Great, but something's happened here. I'm still trying to wrap my head around what, but I think it must have got taken out by a slush flow of some kind, because I'm still trying to figure it out. But here's what it looks like. This is the base, and there was, all these pipes were upright with sensors and things on them. There's big pieces missing. I think they might have gotten carried downhill, so I'm going to have to investigate a little bit here. There's Hanging Glacier. Right. You can see this is where the glacier was. Same thing here. All this. Call that Berserk. There's another little glacier that's disappeared up there. Yeah. I'm going to have to come back here. I need to bring another person or two. It's too challenging to do this on my own, but there's a lot of defunct stations right in this area. This was a really important area that we knew for a long time, but it's definitely in need of a cleanup and a haul This is more than I could put in my plane, so I'm not sure how that's going to work. Yeah, anyway. Commercial things in there. I'm back at airplane camp, and I'm about to survey the last pole before I forget to. That's this pole here. I put this pole in large part because it was just an easy place to put a pole since I was camping here, and I thought everything goes to hell and I can only do one thing when I get here and I have to leave, not even set up a tent, not even just barely get out of the plane. I can just hop out, measure that pole, download that weather station, and get going. Always just kind of thinking of contingencies. So this pole, you can see it's got little pieces of tape on it. Those pieces of tape are so that cameras, little time-lapse game cameras sitting on that weather station, can watch it melt out of the ice, and the pieces of tape, or at least they were put in every 10 centimeters, so that we can look at the time-lapse photos and count, okay, well, the next piece of tape out, next piece. So we get a continuous or semi-continuous daily record anyway of melt here. Traditionally, you would do this with an electronic device that pings the surface, but yeah, just complications, expenses. This is sort of the poor man's way of measuring ablation. This year, though, you see on top there's a little GPS antenna, and at bottom, a logger box right there. A friend of mine, a colleague, lent me some equipment that's a GPS, so we're measuring GPS continuously, or at least once a day continuously through the summer. It was a spur of the moment thing. I really didn't think I was going to make it out here last May. My son Turner messed up his knee, had to get surgery, and he was in a wheelchair, and I couldn't just leave him while I'm out here because he couldn't get around. So it just happened. His mother came to visit for a few weeks, and there was a good patch of weather, so I came in. Flew in one day, did one full day's work, and flew out the next. And one of those things was just to throw this thing together and put it up there. So no solar panel, nothing. It's just same again. I checked it when we got here, and the battery is dead, so it's not logged. I haven't tried to download the data yet. But before I have to kind of disassemble this thing, so I'm going to get my antenna. I have to pull off. You can see down here. These poles are 3 meters in length with those couplings. So I got to pull off the top part of the pole to get my antenna centered over the pole, which means I got to take this whole thing apart first, or at least somewhat take it apart. And that's the last of the survey mass balance work. Still really windy, way too windy to take off. The forecast is for it to not get less windy. So I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I'm still going to try and finish up today and see how it goes. Just keep at it. Well, back at airplane camp, getting down to it, feeling kind of exhausted. It's been a busy couple days, but last project, science project, is firing up a steam drill and drilling some holes. And these holes, so you can see there's the drill, propane tank in there. And that's that hose, that's the length of the hole I'm gonna make. And inside that hole, it's gonna go a thermistor string that measures ice temperature. We measure ice temperature at about 14 meters depth, like we have since the early 70s, because that 14 meter, 15 meter, somewhere in there, that's where the seasonal influence dissipates to almost nothing. So right now the ice is warm right here, right? Because it's warm out. So the surface is warm. It's extracting heat from lower down, warming the ice. So there's imagine there's a wave of warm ice temperature propagating downwards. Well, soon, could be even the next few days, temperatures here will drop, and then you'll have effectively what you can think of as a cold wave propagating down, chasing the warm wave. Well, they catch up to each other 14, 15 meters down, right? That warm wave takes months to get down there. So the ice now at 10 meters is feeling that warmth. It's going to keep going because it doesn't know that it's about to get cold. As soon as it gets cold, that cold will start extracting heat. It's going to chase the warm wave down. Like I said, they meet at about 14 meters. So this depth gives us some sense of what the mean annual air temperature is like. And in some sense, it's better than weather stations because weather stations are a little finicky and everyone does them different, and trying to compare, air temperature now to air temperature in the 70s, it can be done. I don't know if any of our weather stations are that good to make that comparison, but the ice temperature integrates all that. All the vagaries of, where your radiation shield's 2 meters off the ice or 3, or how do you count for snow depth, all that kind of thing. So by putting these ice temperature sensors at depth, shallow depths, 14 meters, we get a sense of mean annual air temperature and how it's changed since the 70s. So when Bernhard did this in the 90s for his PhD, he found there's about a degree warming of air temperature from between the 90s and the 70s. A lot of uncertainty there with those techniques. They're using thermocouples that they only measured while they're out here with a voltmeter. When I started in 2003, actually, by the time I put them in, it was 2004, I think. I put data loggers, digital data loggers, so I'm measuring temperatures every hour for years at a time. Of course, the ice is melting, so what was 14 meters after summer is only 12 meters depth, and after a couple summers, they melt out completely, and the wires are at the surface. So you got to account for that. You got to measure how far down they are each time, so you know what you're actually measuring. But with some modeling, thermal modeling of how energy propagates through the ice, account for snow depths because that insulates the air temperature. I've got air temperature measurements up above. I've got all the data to get the right answer, and I can go back and reanalyze the 70s and 90s data. So I've been reinstalling these every few years. I haven't put one in though in 7 or 8 maybe. So this is a good one. And I hear the steam drill now starting to make noise. Pretty soon we should see maybe some steam coming out of the tip, and then we know it's ready to drill. It's gotta be careful with these things. Basically we've got a weed burner on a pressure vessel. You gotta watch, it's got a pressure sensor, so it tells us if it's about to explode or not. It's got some relief valves. But yeah, this is something to pay attention to. So I will check back in once we have a hole. So almost 4 meters down our steam drill hole, just to give you a sense. There's the hole. Trick to steam drilling is you can't let the tip rest on the bottom. You got to kind of just keep bouncing it on the bottom, because you rest on the bottom, it could start to get a little curve to it. Typically what you're putting down, you want to go straight down. I'm putting a wire down so it's a little better, but like a pole, if there's any curve to the hole, the pole will get jammed up and you just wasted an hour and a half drilling this hole. It's slow going. It's really windy. Steam drill doesn't like to stay on, but I've got it reasonably well protected. It's a great unit. I've got it sitting in the box there. Little propane bottle powering it. Lightweight, really well designed, great unit. Can't beat it. Comes from Austria, or Germany, I should say. Yeah, one of the best inventions for glaciology right here. But it is slow going. I'm at 4 meters now, only 10 more to go. Been at it for probably half an hour. Might have to fill up again, but all we can do is all we can do. Well, I didn't get the Mr. string installed. I got about 7 meters down, and wind was picking up. Had some really strong gusts come by, and I thought it's time to pack up, make sure it doesn't blow away, like including the plane and the tent and all the stuff and the gear. So I switched gears. I think outside is set. See how strong it gets. We can get some really strong winds here. I hope they're not going to get that strong tonight, but I think the plane is anchored down. I think the tent is anchored down. I'm going to take a little break, download some data, make some dinner, and yeah, see what tomorrow brings. Be nice to, I've been meaning to get those thermistor strings in for years now. I hoped this was the trip, but it's not the highest priority compared to a lot of other things. So check the weather in the morning. If might be we leave tomorrow, might be here another week. We'll see. All right. I have a feeling it's gonna be a long night. Cook a little dinner here. Tonight's Three Sisters stew. Last night was pad thai. They're all good. Nice thing about summertime camping is you don't have to melt snow, so dinner happens pretty quickly. And then shut the stove off as soon as it's boiled. It's, the last thing I need is stay cool in my tent, or no tents at all. About 7 o'clock now. Didn't get as much as I wanted to done, but got a lot done. Got all the surveying done, all the mass balance done. If I left tomorrow, I'd be happy with it. A couple more days to fiddle fart around. A bunch of cleanup I need to do. To see how it goes. Almost there. End of day 2. About to pass out. The wind may have other ideas. We've had a lot of storms out here over the years. Different locations. Yeah, tent that I can remember losing was an outhouse tent one time. When we were camped in the upper Cirque. It was right there. I knew it was going to go. I tried to grab it. It went bing, right over the top of my head. Which wasn't so bad necessarily, because we could make do, except all the toilet paper that we had was it was a floorless tent, like an ice fishing tent. All of our toilet paper was inside that tent, so when the tent disappeared, fortunately I was downwind of it. It went over my head. All of the toilet paper started trying to go away too, so I was like on all fours trying to grab it as it went by. But learned to distribute the toilet paper after that. Yeah, this is supposed to go on for another day or so. We've had, hopefully this isn't the case, but we've been out here, we've had 100-mile-an-hour winds. It's not supposed to get that strong, but those winds also come from the south. And when they happen in winter, it's a really warm wind. So you could be outside in it. It's not like danger. I mean, there's some danger, but it's not like you're going to get frostbite or something. We were coming back from, probably from where I was today, down Glacier, maybe the terminus, I can't remember, in winter, and the wind picked up like that. And by the time we got to, not even to here, as we were walking up or skiing up Glacier, the wind had scoured the snow down to ice. Just as we were walking, I mean, the wind was strong enough, 100-mile-an-hour wind, knock you off your feet. I mean, it was gusts that are 100 miles an hour. It was mostly like 50 to 60, which is something serious to walk into. So it's kind of like this. Or I shouldn't say it was steady 50 to 60. It was steady 20 to 30. But then these gusts come down. You could see them when you're on the snow. You can see them coming because the snow's picking up like a little blizzard, and you just get hit by it and just picks everyone up, tosses them aside. But it was warm. I mean, it's a warm wind. So, yeah, I don't want the plane to have that wind coming from behind it. Let's see what happens. Wind plays a huge role in mass balance, or mass balance measurements anyway. It's not really clear what role it plays in the mass balance itself, but I don't think we've gotten those winds as much as we used to. I really need to look at the weather station data. Unfortunately, the really good weather station for that, I stopped servicing it when I started on my own, because you have to hike up a mountain, basically. I just don't want to do that on my own. But that gets high enough that it catches those winds that are screaming over the top of us. But like I said, that wind will scour the snow down to ice. So to some degree, what I measure on these mass balance stakes in winter is dependent on how long ago the last big windstorm was, right? So wind scour, wind redistribution plays a big role here, in drifts, of course, too. Drifts densify the snow. So it's really heterogeneous. I do what I can. I mean, it's something, but I would need 100 stakes to really capture what's going on there. And really what I need is 100 sonic rangers, that are continuously measuring snow depth, because the snow is moving from here to here, falls, and it goes away. But in some sense, I guess what's important is what remains at the end of winter, because that's what potentially will turn into glacier ice. But I don't know for sure, but like those heavier snow, or those thicker winter snows that I was measuring a couple of years ago, that could be more snowfall, or it could just be less wind. Just more of it stuck around. I don't know yet. One of those things that not at the top of the list of analyses just yet, but I aspire to it. For now, nothing's at the top of my list for analysis except seeing the back of my eyelids. So, see what tomorrow brings.